Hillchas Tamidim Musafin chapter 6 to 1. The following is the order of continuous offerings upon each day. Shortly before dawn, the supervisor in charge of the lotteries comes and knocks gently on the gates of the temple courtyard. They are opened for him, and an inspection is made of the temple courtyard. The bakers of the Chavitin are roused to prepare the Chavit, and all the priests there will have already immersed themselves before the supervisor comes and garb themselves in the priestly garments. They come and stand in the chamber of the hewn stone and carry out the first and second lottery, and the priests who merited are designated to perform the services as we explained. When the merited remove the ashes from the outer altar, begins removing them according to the procedure we described. Afterwards, he arranges a large array of wood in the altar, and then he arranges the second tray, and then he brings the two logs of wood and places them in an array to increase the fire. Afterwards, they enter the chamber of the utensils, remove all the utensils that are necessary for the entire day. They give the lamb to be sacrificed as the continuous offering, water to drink. The one who merited to slaughter it pulls it to the butchering area. All the priests who merited to take the limbs up to the ramp follow him away there until they open the great gate of the sanctuary. When the gate is open, the lamb to be sacrificed as a continuous offering, slaughtered afterwards and 2% the sanctuary. One who merited to remove the ashes from the inner altar, and the other one who merited to remove the ashes from the minareh. 2. One who removed the ashes from the altar should do that at the same time. The slaughterer slaughters the lamb to be offered as the continuous offering. Afterwards, the person who receives its blood dashes it on the altar. 3. After the blood is dashed on the altar, the second priest in the sanctuary kindles 5 lamps, and both of them leave the sanctuary. The priest in the butchering area skin the lamb and cut it into portions. Each one brings the limb which he merited to the ramp. The limbs are placed in the lower half of the western portion of the ramp. The portions of the animals sacrificed as additional offerings are placed in the lower half of the eastern portion of the ramp. Those of the Rosh Chodesh are placed on the top of the altar between the horns in the place where the priest walked to publicize that it is Rosh Chodesh day. There they salt the limbs. They also salt the ramp even on Shabbos, so the priest will not slip and fall while bringing wood up to the ramp. Although the salt intervenes between the priest's feet and the ramp, it is not a concern since carrying this wood is part of the temple is not part of the temple service. 4. After the limbs are brought to the ramp, all the priests gather in the chamber of the kingstone. The supervisor tells them to recite one blessing. They begin the recitation of the blessing of the 10 Commandments, the passage of Shema, the passage of Shema, the passage of Vayirma, the blessings Amos Yatzev, and the blessing Say and some Shalom after the Shabbos. On the Shabbos, another blessing is added. It is recited by the members of the priestly watch that depart, the members of the watch that enter. May he who causes the same to rest in his house cause love, brotherhood, and peace and friendship to rest among you. Afterwards, they hold the third and fourth lotteries. The priest who merited to offer the incense enters the sanctuary and offers it afterwards. The one who merited to remove the ashes merit enters and kindles 2 candles. The priest who offer the incense and the one who removed the ashes of the merit depart and stand on the steps. They enter the hall together with his priestly brethren. 5. When the priest who offered the incense enters the area between the entrance hall and the altar, a priest takes a rake and throws it between the entrance hall and the altar. It makes a loud noise. It serves 3 purposes. A. When he heard its noise, its sound would know that his priestly brethren were entering the sanctuary to prepare themselves, so he would also run and go. B. A Levite who heard the sound knew that his Levitical brethren were gathering to begin the singing that accompanied the offerings, and he would run and go. C. When the head of the Maimon heard its sound, he would have the impure stand at the western gate because of the suspicion, that is, so that everyone should know that they had not brought their atonement offerings as of yet. Afterward, the priest who merited to bring up the limbs brought the limbs up from the ramp to the altar. After the limbs were brought up, the priest standing on the steps to the entrance hall began reciting the priestly blessing as one blessing, reciting God's explicit name as explained in the appropriate place. Afterwards, they brought up the flower of the accompanying offerings up to the altar. After the flower, they offer the chavitin on the pyre. After the chavitin, they offer the wine libation. While the wine is being poured, the Levites recite song, and the musicians play on the various instruments in the temple. 9. Gears are sound during the bars of the song. 6. When they would give the wine to the priest who would perform the libation, there were 2 priests holding 2 trumpets in their hands who would stand on the table where the fats were placed. The sagan holds the corner of the altar with the flags in his hand. When he waved them, they would sound the Tkiyah to the Tkiyah. The priest with the trumpets would then stand next to the priest who was placed in charge of the cymbals, one to his right and one to his left. 7. When the priest who offered the libation bent down to pour the scum, waved the flags. The priest with the cymbals would sound them, and the others would sound the trumpets. Levites began singing. When they reached the end of the bar, the priest would sound the trumpets, and all the people of the choir would prostrate themselves at the conclusion of every bar of the song. They would sound the trumpets, and every trumpet sound, the people would prostrate themselves. There was a total of 9 trumpet blasts sounded for the continuous offering. As we explained, 8. The songs are recited only over the communal burnt offerings and peace offerings, which are mentioned in the Torah. Song is not recited over the free will burnt offerings that are offered from the remaining funds at a temple collection, even though they are communal offerings. Similarly, when the additional offerings are brought independently, song is not recited over them. 9. These are the songs the Levites would recite on Sunday. They recite the earth and its fullness is God's. On Monday, they recite God's great and exceedingly praised in the city of praised and save our Lord. Tuesday, they recite God stands in the council of judges. Among the judges, he delivers judgment. On Wednesday, they recite the Lord is God of retribution. O God of retribution, reveal yourself on Psalm 94. On Thursday, they would recite raise joyous song to God, our strength, sound the shofar of Jacob, of God, the God of Jacob. Friday, they would recite God's king, clothe himself with granite, God is robed until he has girded himself with strength. On the Shabbos, they would recite a song for the Shabbos day, and the Musaf, for the Musaf offering, a Shabbos song, Hazinu, is recited, is divided into 6 segments, Haziv Lach, just as it is read in synagogue. 1 segment is recited each Shabbos. After the song is completed on 6 Shabbos, they would return to the beginning. In the afternoon of the Shabbos, they would recite from then Moses sang, and from who is like you. When the Musaf offering was Chodesh, they would recite, raise a joyous song to God, our strength. For Shanafal on Thursday, they recited The Rosh said, I have removed his shoulder from the burden on the afternoon. Rosh Hashanah, the Rosh said, the voice of God causes the desert to tremble. 10. When Rosh Chodesh falls on the Shabbos, the song of Rosh Chodesh takes priority over that of Shabbos in order to publicize that the day is Rosh Chodesh. 11. On Shabbos, 2 bowls of frankincense are offered on the altars prior together with the additional offerings before the wine libation that accompanied these offerings. The order that was followed for the sacrifices offered in the morning is followed in the sacrifices offered in the afternoon, with the exception of the removal of the ashes from the outer altar, the arrangement of the rays of wooden altar, and the lotteries which are only performed each day in the morning, as we explained. Chapter 7. 1. On Rosh Chodesh, the additional offering on Rosh Chodesh is offered after the continuous offering in the morning. 1 is the additional offering on Rosh Chodesh comprised 2 bulls, 1 ram, 7 sheep. All burnt offerings, the goat is brought as sin offering to the procedure of which all the burnt offerings are brought as the same as that of the continuous offering. The procedure of which the sin offerings, Rosh Chodesh, and the festivals are offered is the same that which employed for the sin offering, which is even that we described. 3. On Pesach, additional offering is brought every day for the first day of the 7th day, like that of the additional offering on Rosh Chodesh, 2 bulls, 1 ram, and 7 sheep. All burnt offerings, a goat is brought as a sin offering, which is eaten on the 2nd day of Pesach, the 16th day, besides the additional offering brought each day of the holiday. A lamb is offered as a burnt offering together with the emerald barley that is waved. This is a communal meal offering, as we explained before. There is a fixed time when this offering is brought, hence to supersedes the prohibition against forbidden labor on the Shabbos and the restrictions of ritual impurity. This meal offering may only be brought from Eretz Yisrael's Leviticus states. You shall bring the Emer for the first of your harvest to the priest. It is a mitzvah to bring the Emer from the fields that are close to Jerusalem. If it was not brought from a close place, it may be brought from any place in Eretz 6. The mitzvah that is reaped at night on the night of the 16th of Nisan. This applies whether that they falls during the week or on the Shabbos. 17th iron is acceptable for reaping the barley. The Emer, if it was reaped during the day, is acceptable. 8. This to bring for the standing grain. If appropriate standing grain was not found, it should be brought from the sheaves. 9 is the mitzvah to harvest grain that is fresh. If such grain was not found, it may be brought from dried grain. 10. The practice to bring the Emer from fields to the south of Jerusalem. They would leave one half of the field fallow and sow the other half 1 year, and the following year they would leave fallow the half of the field that was previously sown, sow the other half, and bring the Emer from it. 11. The Emer would come from barley. This is Allah communicated most of the teacher happens to offer brought on the day before the festival. Agents of the court would go out to the field and tie barley into the bundles when it was still attached to the ground, so that it would be easy to reap. On the evening after Pesach, all the inhabitants of the neighboring villages would gather so that it would be reaped with much flourish. They would have 3 men reap 3 saw barley in 3 baskets with 3 sickles. When it was dark, the reapers would ask those standing in the tents, has the sun set? They would answer yes. Has the sun set? They would answer yes. Has the sun set? They would answer yes. Is the sickle? They would answer yes. Is the sickle? They would answer yes. Is this a sickle? They would answer yes. Is this a basket? They would answer yes. Is this a basket? They would answer yes. Is this a basket? They would answer yes. If it was the Shabbos, they would ask, is this Shabbos? They would answer yes. If it's the Shabbos, they would answer yes. Is it the Shabbos? They would answer yes. Afterwards, they would ask, should I reap? And they would answer yes. Should I reap? They would answer yes. Should I reap? They would answer yes. 3 questions and answers were given regarding each matter. Why results necessary? Because of those who erred and who departed from the community of Israel in the Second Temple era. They maintained the Torah's expression from the day following the Shabbos should be understood literally as referring to the Shabbos of the week. Nevertheless, according to the old tradition, such is derived from the intent that it is not Shabbos but the festival, and so was understood at all times by the proper sense. Had never generation they were waived on the 16th, whether it fell during the week or on Shabbos. The interpretation was reflected in written Torah itself, or is written in Torah. You shall need bread, roasted grain, or kernels of grain for the same day. And the Joshua state, and they ate for the produce of the land on the day after Pesach, matzahs and roasted grain. If one would presume that year Pesach on Shabbos, as these fools have supposed, why the scripture make the license for them to eat new grain depends on the fact that it is not fundamental, nor the true cause, but mere coincidence. Instead, the scripture may matter depending on the day after Pesach. It is clear that the day after Pesach is the cause that permits new grain to be eaten, and no attention is paid to the day of the week on which it falls. 12. They reaped the barley and they placed it in baskets and brought it to the temple court. There they beat it, winnowed it, selected the kernels, the part kernels, taken and roasted over the fire in a cylinder with holes that the fire would reach its entirety. As Leviticus states, from ripe ears roasted with fire ground from fresh kernels, according to the authors, we learned that the verse speaking only of the Emer meal offering after it's roasted is spread to the temple court, and the wind wafted through it, Then is taken to a mill for kernels and ground to produce 3 saw. From that quantity, Nisaran is taken out after it has been sifted with 13 sifters. The remainder is redeemed and afterwards may be eaten by any person. Chalas be separate from that grain, but it's exempt for the tithe, as we explained. This is certain to find barley flour is taken and mixed with a leg of oil on the sick and used, and a handful of frankincense is placed upon it like the other meal offerings, just waved in the eastern portion of the temple court, being passed to all 4 directions, lifted up, brought down, and is then brought close to the tip of the southwestern quarter of the altar, like other meal offerings. A handful of this meal is taken and offered in the altar's pile, the remainder received by the priest, like the remainder of all the meal offerings. What is taken after the additional offerings, they is offered the lamb brought as a burnt offering is offered before the continuous offering in the afternoon. 13 is forbidden to reap any of the species of grain sold before the reaping of the Emer, because Leviticus refers to it as the first of your harvest, implying that should be the first grain that is reaped, the one that is applied to harvest from which Emer offering could be brought. If you're located in parched land that a valley or conscience may be reaped before the reaping of the Emer, because it is not fit to bring the Emer from it. Even such grain should not, however, be collected in a grain heap 14 when grown. Grain grows its roots before the reaping the Emer causes it to be emitted. If not, it is forbidden to harvest it, just as it would partake of it until the Emer is harvested next year. If the human grain has not completed the final third of its growth, it may be reaped even if it has not grown, root for the reaping of the Emer to feed it to an animal grain may be reaped, so it does not ruin trees, and may be reaped to declare a place for assembly of mourning or an assembly of study. For the proof text states your harvest implies that the restrictions do not apply to harvest associated with a myth, and even though it's made to reap, one should not buy stocks of barley as sheaves as the reapers do. Instead, you should leave them in small bottles. 17, we have already explained the meal offerings. The meal offering, the additional offering, and first fruits may not be brought from the grain before the bringing of the Emer. If one brought them, the offering is invalid. Similarly, these offerings should not be brought before bringing the two loaves of shavuos, but if one brought them, the offering is acceptable. 18, anyone who offers a meal offering for the new grain should recite bracha shachianu. 19, when the grain was sown after the offering of the Emer and harvested after the Emer was offered the following year, there was an unresolved doubt. May meal offerings be brought from the initial prior before the two loaves of brought was because the two loaves of the Emer had been brought while this grain was growing, or perhaps the meal offering should not be brought from until after the bringing of the two loaves after the Emer the same year were brought. 20, similarly, if grain was growing in the ground and its leaves began to form and began to blossom at the time of the bringing of the two loaves, there was never solved question if the blossoming or the formation of the leaves considered equivalent to the grain taking root is permitted to bring meal offerings. Permitted order is not considered so equivalent to have taken root, therefore one should not bring such offerings. If one did, we assume they were accepted. 21. One reaps grain before the harvest of the Emer is not liable for lashes, and the grain he reaps is fit to be used. 22, it is a positive commandment to count 7 complete weeks from the day the Ember is brought. Leviticus states, and from the day after the Shabbos, you shall count 7 weeks. It is a mitzvah to count the days together with the weeks. And Leviticus states, you shall count 50 days. One should count at the inception of the new day, therefore one counts at night, beginning from the night of the 16th of December 23. One were forgotten and did not count at night, you should count every day. One should count only when standing. If one counted while sitting, he is fulfilled his obligation. 24, the mitzvah is incumbent upon every Jewish male in every place and at all times. Women and servants are absolved from it. 25, each night the following blessings should be recited before counting. Blessed are you, God, our Lord, who sanctifies with commands, commanded us to turn to the counting of the Emer. When counted without reciting the blessing, he fulfills obligation, should not recite the blessing afterwards. Chapter 8. 1. If the day of the counting of the Emer is also the holiday of Shavuos, it is also called that Exodus. Instead, the additional offering is brought like one brought on Rosh 2 bulls, 1 ram, and 7 sheep. All the burnt offerings that go as brought as an offering to the additional offerings that were mentioned in the book of Numbers. They are the additional offerings associated with the day. Also, besides the additional offering of this day, a meal offering is brought from new grain, 2 loaves together with the loaves that are offered. A bull, 2 rams, 7 sheep. All the burnt offerings is brought as an offering, and 2 sheep are brought as peace offerings. These are the additional offerings that were mentioned in the book of Leviticus. Thus, in this day, besides 2 loaves brought as continuous offerings, they are offered 3 bulls, 3 rams, and 4 sheep, a total of 20 animals as burnt offerings, and 2 goats ascent offerings which are eaten, and 2 sheep as peace offerings which are eaten. These 2 laws may be brought only from our son from freshly harvested grains indicated by Leviticus. From your dwelling places to bring bread that will be waived. If freshly harvested grain cannot be found, women bring it from that which has been stored away. 3. If wheat kernels descended from the clouds, which not result out whether they are considered as coming from your dwelling places, hence as the initial purpose, the loaf should not be brought from the screen after the fact. The offering is acceptable. How 2 loaves brought, 3 of wheat and the grain are brought, the kernels are struck and tread upon as done for all meal offerings. They should be ground, 5 flour to produce 2 sodium that are sifted with 12 sifters. The remainder is redeemed, and that person may be eaten by a person. Chal must be separate from that grain, but it's exempt from the tithe, as we explained. 4 of the 2 loaves come from the new grain, must each come from a new star and produced from a and a half of kernels. They are sifted with 12 sifters from the showbread that comes from the grain that are grown for a full season. It's sufficient to use 11 sifters, and a star is produced from every star. The Emer, which however comes from barley, does not come from choice grain, hence it requires 3 star and 13 sifters. 5 in all these instances, if one added the number of used or subtracted from them, the offerings is acceptable. 6, the to a certain taken each one is kneaded into dough individually and baked individually. 7, the dough for them is made and they are shaped outside the temple courtyard. They are, however, baked inside the temple courtyard, like all meal offerings. 8, preparing these loaves do not supersede the prohibition against forbidden labor on the festivals. Needless to say, those of Shabbos. Instead, they are baked on the day preceding the festival for Exodus, which permits cooking and baking on the festival states, it alone may be done for your souls. Implied is the exclusion for your souls and not for the Most High. 9, if the day before the festival to Shabbos, they should be baked on Friday and eaten on Thursday, after which they were baked, which is the festival is explicitly stated in the third that they should be leavened bread. How were they prepared on one would bring yeast from another place and place it into the Asaran measure. You would then fill that measure with fine flour and let it leaven with that yeast. 10, they were rectangular. The length of each loaf was 7 handbreadths. Their width was 4 handbreadths. Their height was 4 finger breadths. 11, how was the bread waved together with the 2 sheep brought as peace offerings? The 2 sheep were brought and they should be waved while they were alive, as Leviticus states, and the priest shall wave them. If one waved each of them individually, the obligation is fulfilled. Afterwards, they are slaughtered and skinned, the breast and the thigh, and both of them are taken and placed aside the 2 loaves. The priest should place both his hands below them and wave them all in a single entity in the eastern portion of the temple court, in the place where all the waving of offerings is performed. One should bring them back and forth to each of the 4 directions and up and down. If one waved each of the loaves together with one breast and one thigh individually, the obligation is fulfilled. Afterwards, a modem of those sheep are offered on the altar's pyre. The remainder of the meat is eaten by the priest with regard to the two loaves. The high priest receives one of them, and the other is divided among all the priests who watch the day. Both may be eaten for the entire day and half the night, like the meat of the sacrifices of the most sacred order. 12. The following must apply if one slaughtered the two sheep for 4 loaves. The priest performing the service said, "Let 2 of the 4 become sanctified." He should remove 2 of the 4 and wave them. The remainder should be redeemed inside the temple courtyard and eaten outside like other ordinary bread. If he did not make such a stipulation, the bread does not become sanctified. 13. He should slaughter 4 sheep for 2 loaves. They should take away 2 of them and dash their blood on the altar with the intent they should not be for this offering. You should then wave the remainder 2 together with the loaves. 14. The 2 birds are each indispensable requirements for the offering of each other, and the sheep are each indispensable requirements for the offering of each other. If one of them died, fled, or became treif, a partner should be taken for the second. If one was slaughtered with the proper intent and then the other died, like a partner should be taken for the first 15. 2 loaves are indispensable requirements for the offering of the sheep, but the 2 sheep are not indispensable requirements for the offering of the loaves. Nevertheless, if the loaves were waved together with the sheep, they are indispensable requirements for their being offered. Thus, if the loaves were lost, the sheep should be destroyed. And if the sheep were lost, the loaves should be destroyed, and the other loaves and other sheep should be brought. 16. How should the 2 loaves be brought when they are brought without the sheep? They should be weighed and then left till the form spoils, and then taken out to the place where sacrifices are burned. This is a decree. Next, the sheep be available the coming year, and the loaves be offered without them. The 2 bulls, rams, 7 sheep, and the goat are brought in this day because the loaves are not indispensable requirements for the offering of the loaves, nor are the loaves indispensable requirements for their being offered. 17. The 2 bulls for the additional offering of the day, and the bull brought because of the bread are not indispensable requirements for the offering of each other. 18. The ram of the additional offering of the day, and the 2 rams brought because of the bread are not indispensable requirements for the offering of each other. 19. The 7 sheep of the additional offering of the day, and the 7 sheep brought because of the bread are not indispensable requirements for the offering of each other. If they were slaughtered, they are indispensable requirements for the offering of each other. 20. The continuous offerings were not indispensable requirements for the additional offerings, nor are the additional offerings indispensable requirements for the continuous offerings, nor are the additional offerings indispensable requirements for each other, nor is the entire amount of burnt offerings an indispensable requirement. What is applied? If only 6 sheep were found, the 6 should be offered. If one found only 1 sheep, it should be offered. This applies whether on Rosh Chodesh, one of the festivals, or for Shabbos. There is no obligation to offer the other animals on the following day or at any time. Instead, whenever the date of a communal sacrifice passes without it being offered, the obligation to offer the sacrifices is nullified. If there were only 2 sheep to be found, thus, if they would be offered for the additional offering of the day, there would not be any other continuous offering of on the next day. The options are of equal weight. If they were offered for the additional offering of that day, and the offering is acceptable for the entire day be left to be offered the following day, they should be left.